Hello, geometry students. Today we're going to be looking at 5.2, talking about congruency a little bit. Today is going to be kind of a quick day, an easy day. It's the last of the three little kind of preparation sections that we've started chapter 5 with here before we're going to get into a lot more of a lot deeper things with congruency theorems for triangles, and we're going to be spending a couple days on each of the next couple sections and really diving deep into those concepts. But for today, before we get there, just kind of practicing and seeing how we're naming and talking through these shapes when they're being called congruent, and how the angles and sides correlate when we're naming them and labeling them. So when we're starting here, if we had a situation where triangle ABC was congruent to triangle DEF, that's the only way you would see that. We're gonna be specific on how we're ordering those points, because if we pay attention to the angles, and we're gonna spin these things around here in a little bit, and I'm telling you right now, these two triangles were cloned when I made this, and I spun this one around. That angle at point A and at point D are the same. Those are corresponding angles. Same thing with the angle at point B and at point E. That's why they're next in the name. And then C is a corresponding angle with F. And you can see that they're named in that order. Excuse me. So we can tell a few things by how congruency statements are ordered. If you aren't given any information, we can kind of glean some of that information by how they're named. So if these two are completely congruent, then the side AB would be congruent to the side DE, and so on. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about that as we get into the triangle congruency throughout the chapter, but you can tell a lot from just how these things are named and the order that they're labeled in. Okay, so if I were to say that these two were congruent, okay, if I wanted to name this one KLMN, again, I put this in order, alphabetical order, and I duplicated this shape and I spun it around a little bit, but that O correlates to the K, right? The P correlates to the L, the Q correlates to the M, and the R correlates to the N. So then if we wanted to name this one congruent, we would put it in that order. O, P, Q, R. Okay, so just a brief little look at those before we get into a couple of examples. Only two different types of problems on the homework today. You're going to see a handful of each of them. So the triangles below are congruent and their corresponding parts are marked. So they're showing us all the information we need. Again, with these congruency lines, you see the one angle arc matched with the one angle arc. Those two are going to be corresponding and congruent. The two angle arc and the two angle arc, again, the two dashes through the line matched with the two dashes through the line. So they're matched up with what's corresponding, and they are telling us that they are congruent as well with that information. So then you're just going to go through practicing naming them. So name the corresponding parts. Okay, so if we're looking at the angles first for part A, angle A matches with those two angle arches with angle X. So that's just going to be corresponding to angle X. Angle B matches with the one congruency mark with angle Z. And then angle C has those three arches matching up with angle Y. So then you could get the information to answer part B just from the angles and kind of how you walk through the order of the angles, but they're even giving us that information with the side lengths as well. So line AB, so side AB right here, since it's got those three marks, is going to be congruent and corresponding to this side. Now, we do have to pay a little bit of attention to how it's named. AB comes, the A is first, So the corresponding angle with A, which is X, would have to be named first. And then B is second, so the corresponding angle with B, which is Z, will come second. So it does have to be named in that order XZ, because that's going to keep the same order with the names of the triangles when we do that for part C in a second. You have to keep that order depending on the angles that are corresponding, even when you're naming corresponding sides. Okay? So really you can name these corresponding sides just by matching up the corresponding angles. But we look at that again, so side AC is going to be congruent to what side? Well, it has the 1 hash, so it's going to go here with that yx or xy. We have to be careful how we name it. Well, the A comes first, so the angle that corresponds to A has to come first, and that is x. And then the C matches up with y, so it's going to be side xy. And then the last one, BC. Oh, I wanted a different color there. There we go. BC is going to match up with that YZ or ZY. Again, the B is first in this name, so the angle that matches up with B has to go first, which is Z, and then the C corresponds with the Y. So then that's side C or ZY. Okay, and then if you notice, they didn't just name this triangle ABC. They got a little bit tricky on us, and they named it CAB. So we just have to name it in the order of those corresponding angles. So C corresponds with Y. So then triangle Y, the A corresponds with X, and the B corresponds with Z. So triangle YXZ is congruent to triangle CAB based on the order that we had to name that. Okay? And then the other example, you get to kind of flip these things around here. So for the triangles below, use the tools to move the solid triangle exactly onto the dashed one, then answer the parts below. So this is what your toolbox on Alex is going to look like. I think this one is to grab and move it. This one's going to be spinning it. These two are going to be flipping it. This is flipping left to right. This is flipping up and down. So you're able to kind of move these things around. So in order for me, I'm not using that since I'm on my own document here, but I'm going to spin this one around so that it's kind of laying the same way. And then if we notice, I'm going to have to flip that. So you would flip it left to right, which would be the top right tool in your toolbox. I will just go ahead and do this. So flip left to right. Oh, not that left to right. It's thinking I haven't spun it yet. There we go. So once I have that done, it's flipped in the correct orientation. Then I just have to spin it a little bit more, and you can see that I matched it up perfectly. Okay, well, I think Alex will do a little bit better job of not spinning all your letters there for you. So as you can see, once I have it matched up, let's pull them back away to read the letters correctly. We're going to answer these parts below then. So complete the congruent statements below. So then RS is congruent to what? Well, once you have them matched up exactly the same, you can look at which side that is and the order that they're naming it. So RS, they're going from R over to S in naming it. So we're going to say it's congruent to EF. And then ST, they're starting with S and naming it towards T. So we're going to say FD. So then the side FD is the next one. And then RT, side RT is congruent to what? So again, be careful now. They're saying RT starting at R, going to T. So we're going to start at E and go to D. So then RT is congruent to ED. Okay? So the order matters through each parts of these, and it's a little bit easier to see when you have them facing the same way. Now complete the congruent statement below. So now these are just the angles, RST. So R is going to be congruent to E. And they have the drop down menu for you there. S congruent to F. and then T is congruent to, I think it's D is the last one. Yep. D is congruent to T. Good. And then the last portion here are all three pairs of corresponding sides and all three pairs of corresponding angles congruent. So this is going to get into kind of the congruency versus similarity conversation, which we're not really going to have yet. So I won't totally go down that rabbit hole, but when you can completely overlap the two, then the corresponding angles and their corresponding sides are congruent. So all three pairs of corresponding sides and all three pairs of corresponding angles are congruent. Yes, they are. And the triangles are congruent. Okay, that's all we've got for today. So those couple of examples, I think 4 of each of those problems. Just get used to naming these things and the order and being able to kind of read them based on how they're listed throughout the shape. All right, have a great rest of your day and keep working hard.